I think creating content and event is so important. And I think a lot of people do miss the boat on they make one video, they make like a highlight reel
Right.
and then they're done. But just for clarification, like that's not what Amanda and I are talking about. We're not talking about making a highlight reel. You should, it will be great. We're talking about these industry conversations. How do you engage your customers, your partners, your vendors, your suppliers, having podcast room, right? Running maybe like a little stage set where you have conversations, or just recording one-on-one discussions and then taking and give us a glimpse of maybe how you guys are repurposing content specifically from the events that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do it in a bunch of different ways, and we're in the process of scaling up. So, like, we know what our ideal looks like. We may
Yeah.
not necessarily be there, but we're getting there. So, we look at events as like one of our core content pieces, which means this is an event, an opportunity to create as much content as possible, get the most bang for your buck. So we have a standard package, if you will, of content that's created. So what does that look like? Generally speaking, there's video clips for social media, for BDR outreach. There is, thought leadership things. I want notes. I want whoever was at that event, because I don't usually attend them. I want their notes, or I want a Slack message and say, had a great combo with this person. This is what they were talking about, so that I can write a blog post about that. Or we can create, like a small, like visual, we call it mini content in Splash World. It's just small visual, really easily digestible piece of content that talks about one thing or breaks one thing down really, really simply. But it's about volume, right? Like maybe you have the full length thing, then you have 6 shorts, and then you have 4 social media posts, you have 3 BDR outreaches, you have a drip email campaign, you have promo for your next webinar or next, event that you're attending. You have partners that you are at the event with. Can you create content with them? Can you create a webinar that follows up on some of the, topics that were being discussed there? Do you have a podcast? What kinds of topics can you create, or conversations can you have based on the content that was discussed at the webinar? So it's just a snowball. And I think a lot of people, myself included, get focused and excited about what net new content can I create. I have this great idea for a piece. That's good, and you should still do that. And I got carried away last quarter, and I'm like, I want to make all the AI content, and it's going to be fantastic. And it was. But then I got to the end of the quarter, and I was like, well, great. Now I've got all of this core content from events, webinars, whatever. What have I done with it? Oh, yeah, missed the boat on that one. So it's going back and saying, okay, let's pull all of this stuff out. Let's get as much bang for our buck as we can. Let's plan for that ahead of time, so that when I'm building now Q4 or Q1, I'm saying, here's our core piece of content, or a webinar, an event, and these are all the things that I'm going to create out of it. Maybe like a placeholder. I don't know if I'm going to create a blog post or a small piece of content or whatever, but I know I'm going to do it. And then I let that drive the rest of my calendar.
Yeah, I feel like the repurposing and kind of the distribution of the content. I mean, especially now in a day and age, I mean, for marketers who are listening to this, like the marketing game has changed and is changing 100%. Like you are at these events, you are carrying important conversations, you're learning about your customer, your industry, you're talking about the problems, you're putting out your positioning and stance on things that are going on in your market, the problems you're solving, what customers are having. Like you got to get this information out there, because what used to be trusted was Google searching something and reading blogs. Now it's really no longer trusted, because everybody knows that the blogs are being written by someone in the Philippines, someone in India, somebody here in the
Right.
States that doesn't know anything about your business that you found on Upwork. Like, so
Right.
What is trusted is community. What is trusted is video, like authentic video. Like if they're seeing you and I have this conversation and they deem you to be an expert in content, be like, wow, Amanda really knows what she's talking about. And they watch a video and they're like, oh, wow, maybe we should call her, call Splash. Like that's kind of the direction it's going. So the underlying, I think, point that Amanda and I here are making is your events is the opportunity to create enough content for 6 months. Enough content, maybe
minimum.
not for 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can create a lot.
I mean, depending on how many events, right?
Yeah. I mean,
You
it
don't want
depends what
people
your
to get
content
sick of
schedule
you.
is.
That's the challenge too, right? Is how much is too much? Because there is a such thing as like, oh my gosh, are they ever going to talk about anything else? Sometimes it's hard to know that balance.
Yeah.
But if you have 2 events and a webinar and let's say a podcast, I can create content for an entire quarter off of those 3 things if I really wanted to, and frame it in such a way that you don't feel like it's repetitive. Because I think some of it is you're not just regurgitating what happened at the event, right? You're extrapolating, you're pulling from it, you're taking themes, you're taking topics, you're taking quotes and comments and this and that to inspire other things. Yes, you can repurpose that video 6 ways to Sunday, and you should, but you should also start to think about what's next. What's the follow-up conversation look like there? Maybe that's maybe that's a nurture campaign to those people that you met. We talked about this. I think you want to know more information about that. Am I right? Here's some information about that. And then let that tell you whether or not you were right. If no one's engaging with it, you're like, right, okay, we're changing directions. We're going to go this way. It's a game of chance, but it's informed chaos, basically.
Yeah. I like the education piece too, about how much you end up learning just by talking to so many different people. Like if you can structure those conversations, you end up learning things that maybe you wouldn't have learned previously. So it's kind of like a triple threat. You know what I mean? You're getting it from all these different angles of what you can use at the events.